she was like, oh, just wait until you hit your 30s. Like your body's totally going to change. Like all of a sudden you're going to have baby fever. Like you're going to want them, whatever. I'm still waiting. I have not hit that stage in my life, me or my body, where I'm just like, oh my God, I really want a kid. Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Vulnerable. I am your host, Chelsea Vaughn, and it's just me again. I am back for another solo. I feel like I'm gonna start doing more solo episodes because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, I just don't have as many friends or guests that I can just call up easily and casually anymore. And I don't want to just have guests on just to have someone sitting here. Like I only want to have people on that I feel really excited about, inspired by, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, well, I'm coming up on 1 year of this podcast. And I feel like in the beginning, I was kind of using the guests as a crutch. I'm not going to lie. Like I do really enjoy having another person to talk, like riff off of, collaborate with, hear their thoughts. I really like that. I do like it better than solo episodes. But I also think I just wanted to have another person here. And I thought like, oh, if I have another person, like it'll bring in more of an audience, a different audience and different people and blah, blah, blah. Like all of this is true. But deep down there, I think I just didn't really feel like I was good enough by myself. Like, not that I don't feel good enough as a person, but I mean, as a podcast host, like just as a podcast, like having my own show. I think because I was a little insecure about starting this new adventure, new podcast, new everything, that I was thinking no one's going to want to listen to it as much if I'm just here by myself. But I've looked at the numbers and that's honestly not true. I've had some guests and my solo episodes have done better than some guests. So we're going to ignore those little tiny thoughts in my head that solo episodes aren't as good. And I'm going to start doing them more starting today. But today I'm kind of just, I don't know, talking about whatever I want to talk about, which usually starts with one, something I saw on Sex and the City, or two, something I saw on TikTok. This is kind of both. I saw this TikTok and this girl was just going off about how casually everyone treats having kids. And her point was kind of like, you guys are dating dusty, broke guys, and you feel so comfortable just like having these dusties impregnate you, which was hilarious. Like she was ranting about this. And she was like, you're dating a loser and you don't even care that you're about to have a loser baby. And I was cracking up. But she's not wrong about the casualness that everyone, I feel like, treats having kids. And I don't know if it's just more so, I don't know if it's more worse now or worse before or whatever. I don't have the same sentiment. I don't think it's very casual to have a kid at all. But now that I'm early 30s, my friends, like friends that I've been close with since we were kids, middle school and high school, are having their own kids. And I just went to visit one of my best friends in Austin and meet her baby for the first time. And he's one, and she's like the second one of our group that has a kid now. And it's just very apparent that I am on a different track schedule in life than my friends, which is fine. I don't think we've ever really been on the same kind of trajectory. Clearly, most people aren't doing, I think, what I've been doing in life, or like most people aren't sitting at home when they're 10 being like, I want to move to New York and be a model. So yeah, I don't really try to compare myself to them, but I think when it comes to the kids thing, it's kind of like, as women, we're all sort of on this unspoken timeline of, oh, you're late 20s, early 30s, you should be married and have a kid. And yes, that is totally outdated. And yes, it's getting better and people are talking about it. And I think living in a big city like New York, it's not so much of a pressure. Like if I had stayed at home in Georgia forever, I think it would feel a little bit more uncomfortable with everyone already getting married and having kids. I only like feel that a little bit when I'm with my home friends because we're just in very different places in life. When I'm in New York, like plenty of my friends are late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, don't have kids. And it's not because they don't necessarily want them. It's just because it hasn't come up yet and it's not necessarily as much of a priority here. And I feel like that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I feel a little uncomfortable, honestly, when people ask me if I want to have kids, because I feel like I don't necessarily know the answer yet. And I think when I was younger, actually my whole life, I think in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, the plan in the future is I want to have kids for sure. But now I'm kind of like, do I really want to have kids, or was I just kind of told that I was supposed to have kids and so I think I want to because I'm supposed to, or I'm supposed to feel that way? So it's just more of like questioning where that belief comes from and if it's really how I actually feel. And I think when I froze my eggs, a lot of these thoughts obviously came up because honestly, I froze my eggs because I had the opportunity to, like, very luckily, and I'm very grateful that I just had the opportunity to do that. I think if it just hadn't been an opportunity that presented itself, I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to do it, just because I've never been a person that has this like maternal thing. Like, I think a lot of women talk about how they've just known since they were little that they wanted to be a mom. The one thing they want to do in life is be a mom, and their purpose on this earth is to be a mother to someone. And I have never felt like that. Can't relate to that. And I don't know if people are just lying or brainwashed, like have not done the work to actually question, or what am I trying to say? Dispute that thought process. Or if they really mean it. Like, I'm not saying some people don't mean that, but it's just so hard for me to relate to because I don't feel that way at all. And even like my sister, for example, she wants to be a mom. She's always talked about how she wants to have kids. And when this was like 5 or 10 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago, she was like, oh, just wait until you hit your 30s. Like, your body's totally going to change. Like, all of a sudden you're going to have baby fever. Like, you're going to want them, whatever. I'm still waiting. I have not hit that stage in my life, me or my body, where I'm just like, oh my God, I really want a kid. It's like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and maybe it never will. But I think it's just an interesting thing I've been thinking about. And circling this back to Sex and the City, I was watching an episode with Miranda, and she's talking about how she was thinking about freezing her eggs. And in the episode, I think she's like 32 or 33, and she's on a date with this guy who just got hair plugs. And he's like, I think science has gone too far. Like, maybe some women just aren't meant to have children. Like, if you are thinking about freezing your eggs, then it was just the whole thing. It was a very big stigma. And I just thought that was so interesting because I don't think it's as big of a stigma now. I hope certain men. I hope people aren't looking at women now and being like, what the fuck, you froze your eggs? So I love that it's more accessible and more accepted, but it's also like, it also makes me think about me now being single at 31, and I'm about to start dating. And I was even thinking about this when I was thinking about like making a dating profile. And I'm like, okay, the last time I had a dating profile, I think I was 28. And I just feel like something about putting that number or like seeing that number on a dating app in the 30s is like throwing me. Cause I'm just like, I imagine it's like watching your story, like when you watch your own story and you pretend like you're somebody else. Like, I like to like look through my Instagram or like watch my posts as if I'm an objective third party just watching it. So I'm like thinking about this with my dating profile. And I'm like, if I was a man and I saw 31 on the dating thing, I feel like people would assume that I'm thinking about kids / ready for kids, or immediately want to start a family and get married, which is not really the case at all. But I feel like those ideas are just floating around solely because of my age. And I think with men, that's not the case at all. Like, if I look at a guy's dating profile and it says 31, I'm not immediately assuming he's trying to wife me up and impregnate me. Like, I just think that the double standard around it is kind of And I don't want people to immediately assume that that's what I want, because honestly, I have no idea what I want right now. Yeah. And when I started dating, I feel weird saying my ex, but because like you guys all know who it is. But I also feel weird continuing to say his name because it's like, stop talking about this man. So we're just going to go with my ex. But when I started dating my ex, I was in my 20s. So like I've never dated anyone in my 30s. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a very weird situation. And I think that when I was about to freeze my eggs, if you guys haven't heard this story, I did a whole episode with my doctor. It was like in my first 10 episodes about egg freezing. But at the beginning of the process, basically, long story short, I was on my IUD and they went to look in to see how many follicles I have. Follicles are what lead to eggs that they can extract. And I only had 2. And at my age, you were supposed to have like a lot, like 20-ish was normal, 15 to 20, and I only had 2. And when she told me this, I freaked out. I literally was in the middle of Saks Fifth Avenue crying because I was like, oh my God, she just told me I can't have kids. And then I realized I was crying over kids that I don't even know if I want. But it's very different when somebody like deciding on your own that you don't want to have kids, or having someone tell you potentially that you don't have the option to have kids. Yeah. I don't know if there was a point to this, but that's how I'm feeling about the kids thing. See, this is the part where I'd want to have a guest. Like, I want to know how other people feel about it. Like, I need to have someone on that's a woman in their late 30s or like childless. I don't know what the like right term is. Child-free, I think. Somebody corrected me in my DMs the other day. Yeah, I need to have someone in their late 30s or someone that had a kid when they were like early 40s, because it's not uncommon. And I mean, all this to say, I do have eggs sitting there waiting for me in the freezer. But I feel like what I'm actually waiting for is a person that makes me feel like I want to have kids with them. Like, I don't just, as on my own, I'm not just sitting here dreaming about children and how I wish I had them and how I was put on this earth to be a mom. But I feel like if I found a man that I loved so much to the point where I was like, I think he would be a great father and I want to have kids with this person. Like, I want to procreate and have a child come into the world that is like this person. That makes more sense to me. But I haven't found that yet. So I feel like maybe once I find that piece, the rest of it will make sense. I also feel like there is this underlying, maybe, I don't know if it's a stigma or thought that women who decide they don't want to have kids are selfish or self-centered. And even my own mother has said this to me when I have toyed with the idea of maybe never having kids. She's like, oh, Chelsea, that's selfish. And I think that it's more selfish to have a kid that you don't want. Like, I think it's more selfish to have a kid and still not want to make them your main priority. And I think this goes back to the TikTok of like people having kids too casually. It's like, I don't think that's casual at all, because I understand that once I have a kid, I can't put myself first anymore. And at this current place in my life, like, I'm not ready to not put myself first right now. And I feel like that's fair to say, and I'm allowed to say that. And I think it's more of a smart decision to say that and be honest about it than just have a kid because you feel like you're supposed to have a kid and then not put that kid first. And it's like the only person in that situation that suffers is the kid. And I would rather wait until I get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is a different stage in my life. I feel like, not that I feel like I've done everything like for myself, obviously. I don't know if you ever get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm done being myself and doing things for myself. But just ready for a change and ready to like pour into somebody else. And it's like, once you have this kid, you can't take it back forever. And it's not like, oh, it's just 18 years of your life. Like, no, you have a person that you created forever until you die. And this kind of goes back to my thing about unconditional love that I was talking about with Carly. I think the only exception to the rule of the unconditional love thing is having a kid. Because I was saying, if you guys didn't hear that episode, I was saying that like, I don't like the expectation that a boyfriend expects me to love them unconditionally, because I'm like, I don't love anyone unconditionally except for myself and my future kid. Because I mean, that's really the only person I think that you should or can have the ability to love unconditionally. Yeah. So I think it's kind of fucked up that people are like, oh, you didn't have a kid, you're selfish. You just wanted to continue like living your life. And it's like, that's a choice. It's not necessarily a selfish one. It's just maybe a smarter one if you already know that you're not trying to put somebody before you. I feel like I am, at least right now, better at being an auntie that just pops in here and there. Like, I love my niece and nephew, and I'm kind of like the cool aunt that just like lives in New York and comes home whenever, like pops on FaceTime. But I can't even commit to a dog right now. Like, and I have wanted a dog forever, truly. Like, since I can remember, I've begged my mom for a dog. I've always wanted a dog. And this is kind of related, actually, because the reason I haven't gotten one is because I feel bad that I travel too much or I'm not home enough. And I would feel bad just getting a dog for when I feel like having a dog in my apartment. And then not 90% of the time, but like, okay, 50% of the time I'm not there and the dog's just sitting there sad, or like I don't have a yard to take it out. So I've been waiting, even though I really want one, I've been waiting until I have a different living situation or more free time, or honestly more money dogs are expensive, to take care of the dog or travel with the dog. But yeah, my friends, my home friends that have started having kids, it's actually a really beautiful thing to see because, like I said, I've been friends with these people for literally 20 years. So it's like we became friends when we were like 10, 11, 12 years old. And now to see them have a child is really crazy. And just to watch them turn into moms, that part kind of makes me more excited and hopeful about the idea of me doing it, because it's like, not that I can't see my friends as being moms, but it's like everybody is just figuring it out as they go. Like nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, especially I think with being a parent. And you don't realize that when you're the kid and your parents are just like also kids themselves, like figuring it out. But now seeing the whole entire process from when I was friends with my friends and then now watching them 20 years later have a child, it's like they're great moms and they're figuring it out and we're all kind of like figuring it out together. So that part is really sweet. But again, I'm still just an aunt that pops in, says hi, and then gets to leave. So yeah, I'm currently happy and content at auntie status. If I end up on dating apps, I'm hoping that the men I'm talking to are smart enough to not assume that I just immediately want to have a kid and get married ASAP. Yeah. And let me know your thoughts on the whole thing. Like, I feel like there's probably a lot of people that listen to this that are not in big cities. I think a lot of my followers are like following me because they get to see like what I'm doing in New York and life I'm living, like single. And even when I was posting my apartment to sublet it, the top comment was like, oh, if I didn't have a kid and a husband, like I would totally take this place. And so I would love to know what you guys think about everything I just said and the whole idea behind it as women. But yeah, that's really it. If you guys want to watch the episode, we are at Vulnerable Pod on YouTube. I'm at Chelsea Vaughn on Instagram, at Chelsea Vaughn _ on TikTok. And I will see you guys next episode.